What is up, guys? It's your man Steady Chaos. This is Steady Chaos Productions. So I've taken a few days off over the long holiday weekend to kind of recoup, re-energize, and now I'm back at it on YouTube here adding new content. So I hope you guys have had a safe and healthy Labor Day weekend, and I wanted to take a quick moment tonight to show you how good Control Ultimate Edition really looks on the LG C10 running on a souped up PC with a 3950X Ryzen CPU and a 2080 Super. Now Control has got to be the most demanding PC game, or at least one of them certainly, out there right now on the market. This thing absolutely beats the crap out of my 2080 Super, and to properly play this game at say 4K, somewhere around 120, with ray tracing effects fully enabled and everything else on ultra settings, you're going to need a 3080 probably, I would say. Definitely a 3090 would do. But as you can see here, like I said, running on the LG C10, and I have the Riva statistics tuner up in the top left-hand corner. You see I'm only getting 39 frames per second right now with this game, like I said, on my souped-up rig. So, I mean, with G-Sync, that's good enough to play. Ideally, you'd be at 60 frames per second, but I have a lot of the graphical settings really turned up here. As you can see, I'm pretty much maxing out the video memory of my 2080 Super, which has 8 gigs of memory. This has 7,440 or 7.4 gigs of memory used so far. For whatever reason, Remedy decided not, with Control Ultimate Edition or the Standard Edition, to have HDR. I don't know why, because this game is so gorgeous otherwise. Like I said, especially with the RTX. You can see the RTX reflections real time down here. It looks absolutely gorgeous. I have, if you look at the settings really quick on my display, so it's at a native 3840 by 2160, but it has DLSS on, which is AI upscaling for RTX cards, with a 2560 by 1440 environment render. Let's see, far object detail medium, texture ultra, everything else is on high or ultra, and then ray tracing is on high, which is maximum ray trace reflections, ray trace transparent reflections, ray trace indirect diffuse lighting, ray trace contact shadows, and ray trace debris. That is why these reflections look so gorgeous down here. But it's not necessarily the ray tracing effects that make this game look so great in the LG C10. It's the sheer amount of dynamic destructibility and the amount of chaos and destruction you can cause in this game. Everything is interactive with the environment. That's what makes this game so great. So if I were to grab this trash can, I can throw it through these desks. Look at that. Look at that dynamic destruction. And of course, all the particle effects are also dynamically ray traced. So if you go to, again, to options and graphics, you come down and you see ray trace debris, allow geometric destruction debris to participate in ray tracing, enabling it to enhance RT reflections, contact shadows, and indirect diffuse lighting. Wow. Yeah, this game, I mean, look at this destruction. And of course you have all this running on an LG C10 with perfect blacks, perfect contrast ratio. And again, I really wish that Remedy would have implemented HDR with Control Ultimate Edition, but as it stands now, it really isn't even entirely necessary because this game looks so good without it. But I mean, look at this destruction. I could just do this all damn day. You can destroy everything. Nothing is off the table. Like the sign, all these, this monitor, if I want to grab that, destroy the desk, pick up this, throw it through the glass, run through the glass, watch. I mean, this game. Look at this glass. Right through the glass again. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, look at that. I've destroyed this whole wall. This entire section of office has been destroyed. And now, again, you know, it's running at 38, 39, 40-ish frames per second right now with full ray tracing effects in native 4K with DLSS at 1440p, everything at ultra. So I'm basically getting the best image quality you could get right now in this game, unless I ran the environmental render right here, render resolution at 4K. I'd have to uncheck DLSS, put it at 4K, now watch what happens to the FPS. Now mind you, this is a 3950X, 16 cores, 32 threads, a 2080 Super with 8 gigs of GDDR6 RAM. And look what Control does to my system. Is it frozen? It may very well be for 1 frame per second.
Bruh.
2 frames per second.
Come on, man.
I can't even turn. It's gonna crash my system probably. 2 frames per second. So that is just torturing my 2080 Super. Let me pause the game. And we come and we turn ray tracing off. Everything else is on ultra. The render mode is in 4K. The native resolution is in 4K. What do we get? Even that is not very good. I'm only getting 25 frames per second. This is a 2080 Super, and I'm getting 23 frames per second in Control in native 4K. Now, part of the problem too with Control is this game is very, very sensitive to overclocks, I've found. Anytime I ran my 2080 Super at its factory overclock setting and then manually overclocked it some more, say 500 to 600 megahertz on the memory clock and 100 to 150 so megahertz on the core clock, I would get all kinds of random exception errors and the game would just crash and I have to restart, and then again another 20 or 30 seconds and the game would crash again. So I did some research online and I've heard other people say the same thing, that any kind of overclock leads to instability in this game for whatever reason, which is unfortunate because if I were able to overclock my 2080 Super, I could probably get a solid 30 frames per second in native 4K, but instead I'm stuck here at 23, 24, which is just unplayable. It's just unplayable. And there's very little fluctuation. You see here I'm up to 26 in smaller environments, see 33, but the minute you get out in larger, more open environments, where you have volumetric lighting, it just destroys your GPU. So it's unfortunate that this game is so sensitive with overclocks. It just cannot seemingly tolerate them. But if you make sacrifices, if you wanted to keep a native 4K resolution but enable DLSS at 1080, and now look at us. Now we're up to 64, 61 frames per second. Even at 1080, it looks nice and sharp, nice and clear, and we're getting 100 frames per second. So the game instantly becomes extremely playable. So what happens if I throw ray tracing effects on? You see here the reflections on the ground, they're not dynamically ray traced. They're not that great at all, really. So we go back into options, we put display on. Let's turn all of these back on to high. So native and UI 4K with a DLSS 1080p environmental render. See your ray tracing effects are back on, and we're getting a pretty solid 55 to 60 FPS. Very playable. Yeah, this is very playable. This is usually what I play the game in. And of course, if you wanted to get slightly higher frame rates, you could tweak it here and there. You could go back to display, and you probably could put volumetric lighting at medium, and you probably could turn off ray trace contact shadows and ray trace indirect diffuse lighting off. Just keep ray trace debris on with ray trace transparent reflections and ray trace general reflections, and you're gonna get some solid frames here. Look, so now I'm at 70 FPS pretty consistently with pretty much all the settings on ultra except volumetric lighting is on medium and ray tracing is sort of like on medium. Now, one other thing I've seen with this game that is a bit of an issue is there is texture pop-in and texture render issues. So sometimes you can run around a room like this, see how this picture is nice and sharp, everything looks rendered, and then look at this picture. Oh, see, it just rendered at the last moment. But sometimes the images won't render fully. So like, look right here, see this? What is this, like 240p resolution? Oh, see, it just partially rendered. And it's not my video RAM because I have 8 gigabytes of available video memory and I'm only at 6.7 gigs right now. So I have almost 1.5 gigs available of video memory and I'm not really taxing my GPU at this point. I mean, I'm getting 70 FPS. But for whatever reason, when you go room to room, sometimes there are just texture pop-in issues and texture blur issues. I don't know if this was an issue with the base version of the game, if it's an issue with Control Ultimate Edition. But that kind of puts a minor kind of stain on the overall presentation. I don't always get the texture pop-in problems, but they are, I'd say they're intermittent, but they are distracting nonetheless. See, once again here, look, it's not loading. Oh, there it is. But overall, as you can see, I mean, this game just looks phenomenal on PC. And then once you get the RTX 3080 or 3090 and you pair it up with a Ryzen 3950X, you're gonna have just an absolutely gorgeous presentation. I could not imagine this game on a 3090. Hopefully a 3090 is capable of this, by the way. I'm not so sure a 3080 would be. But hopefully this game will be able to run at 4K 120 with full ray tracing effects on, with everything else set to ultra. This game would look absolutely mouth-wateringly good. Look at this. Look at this. I could just do this all day. Oh my god. Anyway, yeah, so I just wanted to show you how good Control Ultimate Edition can look on a really, really high-end PC gaming rig when presented on an LG OLED television. There are very few things, graphically speaking, that look more impressive than this. Yeah, I think I'm pretty much gonna pair up my 3950X with the 3090, and then I am just gonna be in absolute gaming heaven. And I've also decided that once I get the 3090, I'm probably not gonna get the PlayStation 5 right away. It's happening. I am officially joining the PC Master Race. Probably full time here, at least going into 2021. At some point in 2021, I'll probably get a PlayStation 5 when they're more widely available and when they have more games available to play. There aren't going to be many exclusives. I think Ratchet and Clank, but I'm not spending $550, $600 on a PlayStation 5 for Ratchet and Clank. So anyway, that's going to do it for me, guys. Hopefully you have enjoyed this video. If you have, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and please subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys real soon. Later.